cortisol just means stress. And you can't actually take something to reduce your cortisol levels.
Understanding what cortisol is the first important thing. Cortisol is a stress hormone.
Body composition changes when we go through perimenopause. And often it's something that is completely out of our control.
Perceived to be out of their control. There's definitely elements of managing that. Calorie counting, something that might have worked in your 30s. It's a tool, works for some people. In perimenopause, if you were using that tool, it's a terrible tool during that period of time.
So the mindset of you're not a tree, you can move. How do you make that first step?
If you hate what you're doing, you can set up a side hustle. You're one video away from everybody knowing who you are in a space. The stuck feeling is actually what frustrates us, not the fact that we dislike what we're doing. It's that we feel stuck.
Yeah, you just switch the mindset.
But it's perspective. I was drinking too much.
Okay.
Because it was a bit of a numbing agent and made me feel better temporarily, robbing tomorrow's happiness for today. I didn't even mean to give it up. It wasn't a conscious decision. I'm giving this up for 3 years. I just stopped drinking. Alcohol is like pushing that tire up the hill, but wearing a weighted vest doing it. Training, stacking something that you enjoy with something you hate. For example, coffee is a big one for people. We're not getting into having fasted coffee and its negative impact on your nervous system, etc.
Brian, shut up now, right?
Yeah,
I am one of those people. I go to bed dreaming about the cappuccino.
Never mind. I take that back.
Right?
We're waiting on that. I didn't say anything like that.
Okay, guys, I am absolutely delighted to welcome you back to the podcast. Today I have the amazing Brian Keane. He is the well-known Irish online fitness and nutrition coach, author and speaker. Originally from the west of Ireland, and we won't hold that against him. He has built a strong reputation in the health and wellness space, particularly for his no-nonsense, practical advice on fitness, nutrition, mindset and personal development. And we're going to get into the mindset a bit here now, because I know there's lots of people out there that are struggling with just, you need to do something, but you just don't know how to physically get up and do it. So this is what we're going to talk about today, as well as other things. Brian first gained recognition through his personal transformation and fitness journey, eventually transitioning from a full-time primary school teacher to running his own successful online business. He offers online coaching, educational programs, and speaks at events drawing on both his professional expertise and personal experiences. Is that right?
That is spot on, Laura. Thank you so much.
Brian.
That sounds impressive when I heard it read back to me like that.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it always does.
And you should take credit for that as well. I think it's important that you kind of sit back and go, actually, yeah, I've achieved a lot. It's great.
Yeah, I don't think I'm definitely not good enough at that. It's not one of my strong suits, but yeah, we're going to talk about the mindset, but now I'm thinking I need to adjust my mindset.
Change your own mindset.
100%, yeah.
So Brian, tell me how you got into all of this, going from primary school teacher to the very successful person that you are today.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how I got into the fitness industry in particular, because as you mentioned, I trained as a primary school teacher. So I did a 4-year degree in business and a 1-year postgraduate in teaching in London, in St. Mary's in Twickenham. And I walked into my first teaching job that was a shortage of teachers back in 2011. And I was, I'd say, 30 minutes in front of my first ever class, which was 37-year-old children. And I thought, oh, I don't want to be a teacher.
Really?
Yeah, for day one. Day one.
Had you even done any training before?
I had done teaching practice, and I should have listened to the signals. The canary was in the coal mine then, because I didn't enjoy my teaching practice. And I remember thinking, when I get my own class, it'll be fine. Okay. When I get paid for this, it'll be fine. The I'll be happy win fallacy. I kept telling myself these stories. And day one, I was like, oh shit, this isn't what I want to do. And
was it because the kids were really ugly or what?
It was just a couple of them. No, that's not true. They were lovely kids, and I liked the school. It was just, it was weird because it just felt really. Do you know when you walk into a room with people who have a very different humor to you? Like, I used to live in the States, and Irish humor doesn't transfer to the States. There's only so many times you can say something, and people look at you cockeyed and go, and you're like, all right, this isn't translating at all. I felt like the employment or occupational equivalent of that, where I was sitting in the room going, I don't know what's wrong, but this isn't right. And the analogy I use in books is it felt like I was years climbing a ladder only to realize I was up against the wrong wall. And that's how teaching felt. And to cut a very long story short, I came home that Christmas and I had a big moan, and my mum, God bless her, she's the best ever. She was my biggest fan day one, still is to this day.
Actually, we all are. You have to have someone in your corner, and there's nothing like an Irish mammy.
3 boys,
I'm telling you,
you know the crack.
You need someone that no matter how ugly you are, tells you you're Gorgeous.
100%, 100%. And my mother has been one of the best ever at that. Yeah, so I'm walking through life thinking I'm amazing, and then it's like life hits you back. You're like, what's this? This isn't in line with what Mammy Kane was telling me. But I came home that Christmas and I was having a real kind of sob and pity party for myself. I was like, I hate my job. I don't like London. I'm not enjoying this. And Mom put a question to me. It actually made it into the last book, The Habit on Learn to Jump Out of Bed Every Morning. And it was, what would you do for free? And I thought about that. I was 22, 23 years of age at this point. And I was like, oh, I'd work in a gym for free. I was like, I love working out. I played Gaelic football all my life. GA was my sport. I was in a gym since I was 16 years of age. It was my 16th birthday present from my mum and dad. And it was a huge part of my life. And I was like, if I was sweeping the floor in a gym, I'd be happy. I was like, I'm not happy with what I'm doing now. I hate this. And I remember she said that, look, the other line she gave me was, you're not a tree. If you don't like where you are, you can move, which really stuck, a brain tattoo that I've kept with me ever since. And very long story short, I went back to London. I handed in my notice to teaching. I signed up to a level 2 fitness instructor course, a very basic course. And I walked into that classroom that January and had the complete opposite feeling of, this is the room I'm supposed to be in. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what any of this future looks like, but I'm supposed to be here. And over the last few years, it took me, a few years to transition out. I did both for 2 years. I did teaching during the day, and I worked as a personal trainer at nighttime, evenings and holidays and weekends for 2 years. And then in 2014, I moved back home, moved in with my mum and dad. Thankfully, they let me live there rent free. My sister gave me her own little Toyota Yaris, like one of these small cars that was as big as me, that when you close the front door too hard, all 4 windows would fall down. Oh. It was one of those, but so grateful for it. It got me to and from the gym. And from 2014 on, after a couple of failed attempts, I went broke twice. A couple of failed attempts, attempt number 3 took off. And from 2014 to now, it's been onwards and upwards.
Wow. And what were the 2 failed attempts? What do you mean by that?
Oh, so
just business?
Business attempts. So I made 2 attempts. I went broke twice.
You're very musty there. Are you flexing there deliberately?
Yeah, tight t-shirt. Wear a baby Gap t-shirt.
He's scratching the back of his head now, and he's flexing the muscles deliberately.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, the camera's right here in front of me. I'm like, make sure you're flexing. I went broke twice because I made a lot of stupid decisions, really. One of the biggest ones was I rented a gym in London in Shepherd's Bush in Fitness First, which was the same rent per month as my apartment in West London. So regularly I had too much month at the end of the money, and that was something that you can only do for so long. And I had no clients, and I had just money falling out every month. But I was like, I have the dream. I was like, I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
But 3 months after doing that, I went broke. And I remember trying to take out a £10 note from my NatWest account, my bank account. And if you don't have £10, I had £8.30. If you don't have £10, you can't take out a note. And I remember thinking, shit, I was like, I need to go to the bank. I was like, I need to pay my rent and I have no overdraft. So I went down. I remember I was living with 3 other teachers in London in the small little apartment, and I waited for all the lads to go to the room, and then I started going down the back of the couch to see if I could get money. And I was able to get money for the bus. I took the bus into the bank and I got my overdraft so I could pay my rent that month. And that was me done. I was like, I'm not doing fitness. I'm out. I was like, this personal training crack's not for me. I'm not supposed to work in fitness. And just by pure chance, I went tail between my legs into a substitute teaching position in a school in West London. And one of the girls, 3 weeks after I started, came across the hall to me and was like, I heard you're a personal trainer. I was like, oh, no. I was like, that's not something I do anymore. I don't do that anymore. And she was like, look, I have a wedding in 4 months. I'm too nervous to go to the gym. Will you please train me? And I was like, Jesus, Zoe was her name. I was like, Zoe. I was like, I'm rubbish at this personal training thing. I was like, look, I don't think so. And she was like, please. I was like, okay, I'll take you in the park. I'll do some workouts, but I can't charge you for it. I was like, I'm shit at this. And she's like, okay, amazing. 3 weeks in, we were doing 2 sessions a week. I looked after her nutrition. She started dropping weight, and she came to me and was like, I feel amazing. I'm losing weight. I feel great. Please take money. So I had that moment there and then where I went, I'm not a bad personal trainer. I just don't understand business. And again, like everything, same as someone that's trying to lose belly fat in menopause, or someone who's trying to get stronger or just increase their energy and get all the things they want to do done, you can't solve for a problem that you don't have awareness around. And I realized that business was my issue, not fitness. And so I was able to learn more on that side, and then take that back to Ireland in 2014 and thankfully make it a success on the third time round.
Okay. And how did you do that then? What did you start off with in Ireland? Just doing the personal training?
Yeah. So when I came back, I was at a gym, Galway City Gym, and they let me personal trainer there for free at the time, which was massive for me. And with that, I said I'd give myself 6 months because when I left London, I'd been personal training part-time for 2 years. So I started making more money as a personal trainer than I was as a teacher full-time. And I was like, okay, there's something here. Like same as anybody, you get a bit of success with something, go, well, there's clearly something here. So I said, right, I'm going to move home in 2014 and I'll give myself 6 months. And if I haven't made this a success after 6 months, I had no social media, no podcast, no books. No one knew who I was. My only advantage was that I was pretty decent at my craft because I'd been doing it for 2.5 years. And I said, if I don't get the business off the ground, enough clients, coming into the summer, I'll go on the teacher registry and I'll go back teaching in September. That was the contract I kept with myself, the promise I made to myself. But after 3 months, with the results I was getting with the clients I was working with, I actually had to bring other trainers on underneath me to clear the waiting list. So it took off nearly day one, 2015. Then my daughter was born. Holly was born in May 2015. And I said, I want to move online. I want to spend more time with her. I want more freedom. I want more flexibility. I don't want to be missing the key parts of her life. And then 2015 was about transitioning online, and we moved online in 2016, and we've been online ever since.
So you don't meet people personally in the gym now? It's all online?
All online. Yeah, everything we have is online. Yeah.
Okay. So the mindset of you're not a tree, you can move. I know there's a lot of people stuck in that mindset. I do a confessions box every Sunday on my Instagram, and wild things come in. But every week there's about a few people that go, I hate my job, or I'm just doing my job as a means to an end. And when people are doing their job and they're in their job 8 to 10 hours a day, and that's the majority of their week gone then, because then how much time do you get to spend with your friends and family? It's a sad state of affairs. And it's not as easy as saying, oh, I can just up and leave because I have a mortgage to pay or I've to provide food for the kids.
Yeah.
How do you do it? How do you make that first step?
It's a great question, because the frustrating part isn't that you're stuck in a job you hate. The frustrating part is that you feel stuck in the job you hate. Generally, when you feel and come unstuck, you start to drop off and lose some of the frustration attached to it, from my experience and from working with people over the years. So what I recommend people do is, based on your circumstance, I was single, no children, completely different life scenario back then. Fast forward 10 years, there's people with kids, mortgage, all these other commitments that you mentioned, and they hate their job. A good starting point question is what my mum put to me, and that's, what would you do for free? And even if you're stuck in that job now, no one's saying you have to quit it tomorrow or next week or next month or even in the next 6 months or a year. It's the feeling of stuck, that there's nothing I can do about this, that's frustrating. Hence the analogy that if you don't like where you are, you can move, you're not a tree. And if you hate what you're doing, you can set up a side hustle. Especially now, you know this from like social media and podcasts, and like you're one video away from everybody knowing who you are in a space, and then creating a program, a course, a service, something you could sell that will actually serve and help people in a meaningful way. And then as that builds and grows, and you start to see money and revenue coming in from that potentially, then you leave your job and you quit your job. And that might be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years. That's fine. Because the stuck feeling is actually what frustrates us, not the fact that we're stuck, or not the fact that we dislike what we're doing. It's that we feel stuck.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you've just switched the mindset.
But it's perspective.
Yeah.
Like if you ever see, like we have a table between us here. Like if I write a 6 here, I see a 6 and you see a 9. It's the same number. You're just changing the perspective on it. Your situation's exactly the same. You're just shifting the way you're looking at it.
Okay. So your clients, are they mainly men or women, or is it a mixture?
A mixture of about 60% women, 40% men.
Do you? Now, I would have thought that would have been the other way around, mainly men.
No, and same with my podcast and social is 60-40 female to men.
And why do you think that is?
I've thought about this. Partly the content I create and also the areas that I'm interested in. I think I historically have worked with females primarily, even as a personal trainer. I worked with a lot of females. The fact that I have a daughter makes me very curious of the female body as well. Like I know you've got the book and talking about all the stuff, female vaginas and so on, and so forth. I'm very interested in everything from teenage adolescence all the way up to perimenopause and menopause, and some people hate the phrase postmenopause, but some people label it as that. I'm very curious about that. And because that's an area of natural curiosity to me, it allows me to help and serve people that are struggling in that area. And I think that's partly the reason I have podcasts where I'm talking purely about perimenopause or amenorrhea, where people are losing their periods for long sections of time. That's really prominent in the fitness and athlete industry for females
because they're under eating and
overtraining.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're areas of curiosity for me, and I think I indirectly cover that content, which brings people into my ecosystem, which means they end up working with me, which means I end up getting testimonies and referrals from that type of person, and then other people come in. So I think that's probably the reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do people mainly come to you for the mindset stuff or the personal training stuff or the nutrition, or is it just a complete mixed?
It's nearly always body composition first, and then the mindset. The analogy I use in business is give people what they want on the front and what they need on the back. A lot of people want to lose belly fat. They want to lose their stubborn fat. They want to manage their perimenopausal symptoms if that's where they're struggling with. But what they need is a shift in perspective, a shift in mindset, not self-sabotaging, not falling off track when they eat one food and decide, well, okay, the weekend's gone now, the day's gone. And that generally is where they struggle. So it's all together. It's all holistic. You know this, covering this, your nutrition, your training, your sleep, your movement, your hormone balancing, your mindset. They're not isolated silos. They're all things that are interconnected. And it's not a case of eat this diet and you will look like this. Do this training program and you will look like that. It's everything together.
And women in general, they struggle with weight. They struggle with body image because they're told we need to all look a certain way, even though that's absolutely horseshit. And then there's a lot of talk now about Ozempic and about the weight loss drugs and called the skinny jab, which is just outrageous that it's even called that.
Yeah.
So we'll discuss the perimenopausal stage first. So you have a woman and she may or may not have been slim all her life, but she suddenly wakes up and it seems overnight that she has a tire. I hear it all the time. How do I get rid of my belly fat? Body composition changes when we go through perimenopause, and often it's something that it's completely out of our control. You could be in a calorie deficit and work out as much as you want.
Perceived to be out of their control. There's definitely elements of managing that, which is interesting you said that, because you feel like it's out of your control because what you were doing in the past doesn't work any longer. But because what you did in the past doesn't work doesn't mean there's not other things you can do to change to make it work. So I just want to catch that because it's an important distinction to make. Yeah.
Okay. So how does someone then go about doing it without, I suppose, starving themselves and overtraining and feeling awful because their body has changed?
There's two examples that I probably need to paint as a picture here. If you've got one person, like you said, was relatively lean all their life and now is in perimenopause and feels like they've got a tire and belly fat, what they were doing won't work anymore. So that answer is different to somebody that's always been fluctuating with weight. Someone who's been yo-yo dieting and now it seems that their belly fat is more pronounced because they've been yo-yoing. So the starting point matters. One of the things, and the research is actually pretty clear on this, when you go into perimenopause, but the reason for the belly fat first and foremost is hormonal. Generally, it's estrogen increase and cortisol increase. So when you go into perimenopause, you'll normally get a 10 to 15% increase in estrogen, which is more likely to store fat around your stomach. That's the hormonal reason. Same as cortisol.
But our estrogen levels are fluctuating, and our body produces estrone, which is different to the it's different to the estrogen that was produced before.
Yeah.
So, and that is produced in the fat cells. I think. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you think about the cortisol that goes with that, the stress level of your body feeling like it's on a mini roller coaster, because that's how I heard it described from clients. They feel like, if they're getting hot flashes or they're getting just feeling lethargic or not feeling good, they feel like they're on a roller coaster. They're riding these symptoms. And the training is a very straightforward one here. If you've historically done a lot of cardio or you've done a lot of classes, heavy lifting, which is such a weird thing to say, but the research is really clear that women need to do the compound lifts and heavier, like heavy 5-6 reps on deadlifts, on squats, on presses, things that you might not have done previously because we don't associate that style of training with the majority of females.
How's that going to get rid of belly fat though if they're doing a deadlift?
It's metabolic. So what happens is when you're able to strength train, you end up increasing the bone density from lifting the heavier weight, but you also have a positive impact on your metabolic rate. So if you think about your metabolism, I always use the analogy like a fire. If you have a fire, which is your metabolism, you want that fire burning brightly. And when you go into perimenopause, it can feel like that fire is diminishing. It can feel like once upon a time, I could eat well for a week and I'd feel quite slim and lose a bit of belly fat, where that just stops happening when you hit your 40s, mid 40s, 50s, etc. Again, everyone is different, but I'm talking in generalities based on experience. And what you're trying to do is relight that fire. So your heavy lifting can help with that relighting the fire. So that's the first thing, which is weird because everyone else, I come nutrition first. If someone comes to me and they're 29, 32, looking to lose body fat, looking to tone up, etc., I look at nutrition first. Someone that comes to me with perimenopause, I look at training first. So the priority shifts. So you build that as your base. That's your foundation. And then the stuff that works with nutrition doesn't stop working just because you're in perimenopause. It just means you need to be a little bit more mindful of it. So your healthy fats, you speak a lot about this in terms of the nutrition and the supplementation, making sure that you're aligned with what you need right now. Your protein, your healthy fats, that they're the building blocks of everything that you need. Whereas you can see people going more carbohydrate, and then that roller coaster in terms of blood sugar can have a negative impact. And again, that can just increase what feels like high levels of body fat increasing around your belly particularly.
And I think it's important to note as well that when people are lifting weights and they're building muscle, that can reduce insulin resistance because that's where that's all interconnected.
Yeah.
And lifting weights can help reduce your risk of metabolic disease as well.
Yeah.
So
you talk about this with Alzheimer's and all these others. Like it's the same thing, but sometimes it's sexier to say you'll get your belly fat down.
Yeah.
And then the back end is all these other positives of reduced risk of all-cause mortality and your Alzheimer's and your metabolic diseases, etc., because of that insulin sensitivity. That's what you're trying to increase.
Yeah.
And if you combine your heavy strength training, weightlifting with higher fats, healthy fats, high protein, and then a moderate amount of carbohydrates, for sure, there's no issue, particularly for strength training. You just need those two as your priority, and then your supplements on top of that. That's a pretty good recipe. And then obviously the mindset of doing it consistently is the combination, and that's the secret sauce, really.
So you don't go in with a calorie deficit for these ladies? Because we'll end up hangry.
Yeah.
And even more irritable with you.
It actually doesn't help though, which is so funny because like I'm a nutritionist by trade. That was one of my original certifications, and calories in, calories out is a big thing. It's law of thermodynamics. Yes, it's important, but it's far from the only thing. Far from the only thing. Nutrient density of the food, quality of the food, this matters massively for a whole host of reasons, from energy to mood to gut microbiome to insulin resistance and sensitivity, like we touched on already, to recovery from workouts, which can increase your metabolic rates. You're burning more calories while you're resting, to your sleep, which is balancing hormonal function, etc. Food quality plays a massive role in this. When you're going into perimenopause, it's why I said training first, because food is important, because it'll never not be important. Food is there. It's the fuel for the body. It's the nutrients. It's everything you need. But the calorie counting, something that might have worked in your 30s, which I'm not a massive fan of. It's a tool, works for some people. Like, again, it's a tool like a hammer. You can use a hammer to hammer in a nail, or you can hit yourself in the head with it. It's not the tool that's the problem. It's how you're using it. Calorie tracking is basically a tool like that. Works great for some, terrible for others. In perimenopause, if you were using that tool, it's a terrible tool during that period of time. You would actually be way better off focusing on your training and the quality of your food with healthier fats and protein, and not tracking a single calorie. The beauty of things like protein and fat is, there's inbuilt satiety in those foods, meaning that you will naturally feel full as you're eating them. So that hangry is feedback that you're probably, everyone gets hangry. If I skip several meals, I'll be just a little bit, I go quiet. I don't really get hangry, but I get quiet, and I'm not quiet. So it's like my other half or my daughter, they're like, Dad, have you eaten? Like, because I'm just there sitting there like quietly in a corner, not saying anything to anybody. I'm like, it's like that ad, with the Snickers. It's like, oh, you're a diva when you haven't got your Snickers. So someone's like throwing me a protein bar. So that's slightly different when you're intuitively eating with these foods. You're not going to massively overeat protein particularly. Protein's very difficult to overeat in terms of the inbuilt satiety from those foods and complete
It
protein
actually
sources.
is sometimes.
Yeah.
Even the other day, I was trying to eat a chicken breast after a workout because, I know I need to increase my protein and I like to do it as naturally as possible. But Jesus Christ, trying to get that into me, I was like, God, can I swallow this thing? Whereas I would have really loved a banana and yogurt.
Yeah.
But I know that, and I would eat banana and yogurt and it's no problem. And in my house, there's no bad foods.
Yeah.
But I know that the chicken, but fuck me, it was hard to eat.
Oh,
I was like, and then I was trying to put some chili sauce on it.
Yeah.
It was just, in the morning time, I do love my yogurt and my fruit, but I suppose it's that mindset as like, I know that I can have my yogurt and fruit in the middle of the day, but this is certainly better for me after I've trained.
Or you could pair it together. The thing is, you can have the best of all worlds. Not only with that, but chicken is, use your spices, etc. Loads of ways to flavor it up. But the thing with banana and yogurt, you're getting a quick spike of sugar with your banana. Your yogurt, depending on what's in, it's probably doing something similar. But protein slows that down. So even combining them and having them all together, you don't get the negative blood sugar spike because this chicken will naturally slow down the rate at which you get that increase in blood sugar levels. So combining those can actually help. But it's funny because one of the things I had one of my clients do not do this, by the way, I'm a disclaimer on the front end, but one of my clients that I was working with, there was a guy, quite an overweight guy. We'd lost a lot of weight, but we were talking about the inbuilt satiety of food. We were having a conversation, like a check-in like this, and he's like, I love my Pringles. And I was like, okay. I was like, Pringles are great. Just be mindful that they're very easy to overeat. Like, they've got the whole thing. If you can't pop, once you pop, you can't stop. Like, and that's built off MSG and all the evolutionary reasons why we crave food. You've got your snack, your crunch, your salt, etc. Not to mention the additives.
The mouthfeel as well of them. I'm actually salivating thinking about them, and I never eat Pringles.
But like, have you seen the studies on these? The studies on these are amazing in terms of like the food manufacturers trying to increase the palatability of these foods so that they become addictive for us to overeat. Like, they
do brain scans while people are eating tests, and they find the best ratio of carbohydrate to fat to have that for people's brains to start lighting up in specific areas where they're going bananas. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, we have an old brain for a new world, which is really important with food. Like, so we're evolved to be in food scarcity. So these highly palatable foods are something that kept your ancestors alive. Like, if you're a hunter-gatherer going around, he's like, I found a fucking thing of Pringles. Amazing. Like, food's super scarce. Give me the salt and vinegar. Like, that didn't happen because those foods weren't around. They didn't exist in nature, full stop. But they're kind of Frankenstein foods now. And I'm not saying to avoid them. Same as you. I'm not a good versus bad food person. Like, we project our own morals onto food. Like, a chocolate bar is not going to stab you down a back alley, and a piece of broccoli is not going to save you from a burning building. The morals we project onto food, we've put them onto food. There's foods that's highly nutrient dense and low calorie. There's foods that's low calorie and high nutrient, etc. And every combination in between. Chocolate bars, low nutrient, high calorie. Pringles the same, but dangers in the dose, really. But I had one of my clients who said, love Pringles. And I was trying to explain to him about the difference about the inbuilt satiety of food. So we went with chicken and Pringles was the two food as a test. Now, I'm not saying anybody should do this. So I said to him, okay, what I want you to do, he'd already hit his goal, and he was now in the kind of education side where he's like, I really want to learn more about this, because I'm like, look, you can't overeat on chicken. He's like, I fucking could overeat on chicken. I was like, John, you can't overeat on chicken.
I bet you. I bet you.
That's what he was like. He was challenging me. He goes, well, I'll eat 10 things of Pringles. And I was like, I'm not talking about Pringles. I was like, I'm sure you can. He's like, I'll definitely overeat on chicken. I said, okay, I want you to try an experiment. I was like, on your next free meal, I do free meals with my clients. We don't call them cheat meals. We just call them free meals. So a meal that's off plan. I was like, on your next free meal.
But a free meal isn't like eating 6 Domino's pizzas in one day. It's just...
No, you don't take the piss with it either. Like, don't press the fuck it button completely. But it's just a meal that's off plan. Okay. I normally tell people, like, if you want to go for a restaurant or you want a home cooked meal, but it's not on plan and you want to have some ice cream after, some chocolates, some biscuits, go for it. Or a few drinks. Some people just love a pint. But I said to him, right, next free meal, I want you to have your Pringles, but stop once you hit 2 full boxes. I was like, because you could go to 10. So he said, perfect. Went through the 2 and I was like, how did you feel after the 2? He goes, I could have had a third. And I was like, not surprised. Okay. Now what I want you to do tomorrow, just to kind of control and balance everything out, I said, I want you to do the same thing with chicken. I was like, you get unlimited chicken tomorrow. I was like, for a meal. I was like, I want you to see how many you could eat. You got to 2.5 big chicken breasts. I said, I want you to eat that until you're full. I was like, if you want to have 10, have 10. If you want to have 20, have 20. And he was like, amazing. He was like, I love chicken. 2.5 he had. He was like, I couldn't eat anymore.
Yeah.
He was like, I was full. Like you said, he goes, I just couldn't, I was full. And that experiment, and I'm not saying for people to do this, was to show him the difference between your Frankenstein foods and your whole real foods, your complete protein sources, and that certain foods have inbuilt satiety in them, that it's really hard to overeat them. And the same with carbohydrates, like even just your rice in general. And I'm a big fan of rice and sweet potato and quinoa, etc. But they're a lot easier to overeat. Your proteins are harder, generally, your complete protein sources, and your fats can be harder in some cases, depending. And when you're going into perimenopause and you have that hangry and you have that calorie counting mindset, that's not going to help you going forward. It's actually going to be really detrimental, because not only will your belly fat not reduce, but you're going to be miserable doing it because you're going to be hangry all the time.
Calorie deficit is unsustainable long term.
Unless you're morbidly obese. Yeah, unless you're morbidly, if you're morbidly obese, you can go into a calorie deficit for an extended period of time because you have a lot of fat on your body that you can use for fuel. But for the average person, it's, maintenance and maintaining is actually very underrated when it comes to long term for people. The analogy I use is it's like pushing a big tire up a hill. It's really difficult to push a tire up a hill, but it's actually really easy to hold it up there. That's what body composition is like and nutrition is like. It's really hard to hit your goal. You have to work harder for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe 12 weeks, but actually maintaining it's quite easy, especially if you've built in and done the right habits to get there and you didn't follow a quick fix plan, you didn't take a skinny jab, you didn't do something daft to get there in terms of a slimming club or anything along those lines. You did it the right way. It's very easy to maintain. And sometimes people forget that, because if you're always on a diet, you're doing it wrong. You shouldn't be always on a diet. That's direct feedback. You're doing it wrong.
So how do people start if they don't know where to start when it comes to even just the weightlifting? So I know loads of ladies that would love to start weightlifting, and it's like, where do I start? They don't necessarily want to go to the gym. I always say, I'll say to them, just buy a couple of dumbbells, start with an online training session. That's what I do, because I don't really have the time to go into the gym. And I just find it great. But I suppose I've always worked out. And even in my later years now, I realise why, because I need that. It gives me my dopamine hit and it just sets me up for the day. Now, I don't do it every day, but I do it most days. So if someone's just like, they're always putting it off till tomorrow, or they just find it difficult to get, and it's not that they're lazy or slovenly, it's that mindset piece. Tell them, enlighten them.
A great question again, because there's two answers. There's what you need to do in the short term, and then there's what you need to keep in mind for the future. The University of London did a great study about habit formation, that it takes 66 days to form a new habit. So you nearly need to set yourself up on the front end that it's going to take 66 days of doing something before it becomes your new normal straight away. So even having a timeline of 2.5 months or so of doing something consistently, it then becomes automatic. People that aren't fitness people look at fitness people and go, how do they do that all the time? Like, how do they work out every day, or work out 5 days a week, or go to the gym? It's because they've got past that initial sticking point. They've gone past the 66 days, and they're now similar to me and you, where you're doing it for the endorphins, the dopamine hit. You feel better. It takes time to get there. A mistake some people get, social media is very bad for this, where fitness people will be like, everyone needs to work out. You need to do this, and this all the time, not knowing that it's actually really difficult to start. So acknowledgement that it's not easy starting is important.
And sorry, I just want to qualify as well. There's sometimes where, look, it's not as if I'm skipping downstairs going, I'm dying for my workout.
Yeah.
What I know is that I'll feel better after the workout. And then when I'm 5 minutes into it, I feel good. But, for me, a lot of the time, I'm like, oh, Jesus. And because I have ADHD and I now realise I have complete time blindness, I really work out very well when I know I have to do something. So if I have a 10 o'clock meeting, I will fucking tear the arse out of the morning and do everything that I need to do before a workout. And then at 9:15, I'll go, right, I have to do it now, or I'm never going to do it. And I'm always end up, just like literally by the skin of my teeth making the meeting. So that's how I do it. And it's because I know I've got a deadline to get to, but it's not as if I find it easy to start. And I think that's really important that people know that. I don't think a lot of people skip to their workout, to their gym.
No, I don't even. I love working out as my hobby. It's a career profession. But like, there's days, I train 5 days a week, and I can honestly say 2 of those days I'm excited. A third one's a bit of a coin flip, and there's 2 days where I'm just like, oh my God, like, fucking gym. but then 5 minutes in, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So knowing that's important. And I always tell people, like, you're building on small wins on top of small wins. The first small win, and make it easier for yourself. Like, you need to remove the friction and the barriers to your exercise. So if you're working out at home and you're doing it in the morning before the kids are up, leave your gym clothes and shoes beside the bed and put them on. Like, first thing in the morning. Like, that straight away, you're removing a small barrier of, geez, I have to put on the clothes. Fuck it, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. It's grand. You know, so you're removing that.
Also, what I do sometimes is I'll watch the video. So I'll watch the video instructions that I'm going to do the next day. I'll watch them in bed where I'm all cozy. So then I know what I'm doing. I don't have that extra 5 minutes in the morning time, but I have to watch that video.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll get the weights out of the shed and have them in the living room as well. Sometimes
have it ready.
Yeah, just have it ready, so there's no brainer. Yeah,
100%. So that's one thing straight away. I'm actually a fan. Not everybody loves this, but I'm a fan of stacking something you love with something you hate. You know, it's the I won't use the analogy I use on my podcast.
So ice cream with the workout then, yeah?
Ice cream with the workout. It's like, it's the analogy we've used, which is terrible. I shouldn't be saying this on the podcast. You can block it out. It's like, just eat the frog. I'll use eat the frog is a better.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, just suck the dick. Like that's what we used to always say.
You're assuming that people don't like sucking dick.
100%. And I shouldn't assume anything. I shouldn't, and no, like, everyone do their thing.
Yeah.
If that's your thing, amazing.
I've never heard that expression.
Yeah, that was like one we
is that a West of Ireland
I think it's
thing?
a West of Ireland thing. Yeah, it's just like,
traitors down there
just
now.
Fucking suck the dick and get it done. Like, it's yeah, that's it. We won't get into the parochial fucking Catholic guilt and all that stuff that comes with it, as opposed to just enjoying your sex. But again, different conversation, different day. But with training, stacking something that you enjoy with something you hate. So, for example, coffee's a big one for people. Some people love their morning coffee, and if you tie your love of morning coffee now. We're not getting into having fasted coffee and its negative impact on your nervous system, etc.
What? Sorry.
Well, if you think about in the morning, your cortisol's already elevated because that's what woke you up, and then having a stimulant further elevates your cortisol and spikes
Brian,
your nervous system.
shut up now, right?
Yeah,
I am one of those people. I go to bed dreaming about the cappuccino.
Never mind. I take that back. Right? We're rewinding on that. I didn't say anything like that. There's nothing wrong with it. Coffee's amazing all the time, forever.
Do you not have coffee in the morning time?
I do, but I try not to stack my caffeine directly after waking up, because if you think about, this from melatonin and cortisol. So cortisol is the stress hormone that wakes you up. And your cortisol is already slightly spiked in the morning, and then adding a stimulant like caffeine can further spike that. So it just means you're getting a little bit more of a hit to your nervous system than you potentially need in the morning. But that's not some people are totally fine with this.
That's okay, Brian. We're still friends.
Yeah, exactly. Laura's just sitting daggers at me now. She's like, get the fuck off my podcast. But so if you do love coffee and you want to do it in the morning like that, sometimes stacking the coffee with the workout. Now, cappuccino, you're going to hate me now as well. Because caffeine and coffee, black coffee particularly, is an amazing fat burner. Like, it increases thermogenesis, it increases your ability to burn more calories because of the nervous system stimulant. It's incredible. When you add milk and sugar and stuff to it, you negate some of that. Like, if you look at every fat burning supplement
I'm just having the coffee because I enjoy the coffee, and I'm not having it to burn fat.
Then have it to just enjoy it. But if you pair it with the workout, that can be a thing. And if you make the promise to yourself, I'm not going to have a coffee. If I want the coffee, I have to work out as well.
Okay.
And you pair those two things together, that can be really, really useful. I do it with social media. So because of the dopamine effect of social media, which again, a lot of people will be familiar with, this dopamine, cheap dopamine you're getting from social. But if I'm checking social media in the morning, it has to be paired with a workout. I won't check social if I'm not working out. Those two things are linked for me. So I will never check my social in the morning on a rest day, ever. Because the promise to myself is, okay, I can go on social media, I can have a scroll, I can clear my DMs, etc. But I have to work out after. Partly because I don't want to get into the habit of stacking cheap dopamine on top of cheap dopamine. You don't want to do that. It's a really, really bad habit to get into. So at least when you work out, you're earning your dopamine, you're earning your feel good. So I pair those two things together. For somebody else, it might be the coffee. It's something that you enjoy doing, that you get to do because you've done the workout or before the workout. Pairing that can be really, really helpful. It's a small thing that adds up. And what happens over time, if you love coffee and you hate working out, what's more likely to happen is you will hate working out less because it's paired with your coffee. Not you won't start hating coffee because you're like, oh no, I hate coffee now because I work out now every time I do it. What'll happen is the workouts will become more enjoyable because you'll link and pair those, you'll associate those two things in your brain.
When you smell coffee, then you'll be thinking about working out. You know,
Pavlovian response. You'd be like literally doing press ups while you're putting on the coffee. So yeah, but that's what happens. There's small things that you can do, and compound effect is a real thing. The snowball effect. You're looking to stack and do things that are sustainable, that are small changes that don't disrupt your life. Going from not working out to driving to a gym, to work with a personal trainer or do your own workout is a disruptor. It's very out and of the norm of what you normally do if that's not your normal routine. So you're trying to minimize the friction as much as possible. If you're training at home, put the clothes beside your bed, have the weights laid out in the sitting room the night before, have your coffee and do your workout. Minimize the friction as much as possible. That's how every habit formation, Charles Duhigg, James Clear, every book that's ever been written on habit formation talks about either habit stacking, where you're stacking one habit on top of the other so that you're able to maintain and stick to it for that 66 days or over, or reducing the friction so that you're able to actually form that new habit.
Okay. There you go now.
Yeah.
Podcast done.
yeah, that's it. Coffee for the win.
I know, exactly. So what other, I know you've written several books. Which is your bestseller?
The Fitness Mindset by a good bit.
Okay.
Yeah, Fitness Mindset has over 500,000 copies sold.
And does that talk about the stuff that you've just talked about there now?
Yeah, there's a bit in there. Are
you dissing coffee in there too?
No,
yeah.
I know. I'm a big fan of coffee in there. Caffeine's in there. No, I'm a big coffee person. I love my coffee. Like I wouldn't be worth living. You took away my coffee, I'd be a much more unhappy person.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, how I wrote that book, it was interesting. So it's split into two sections. The whole first half is fitness. It's nutrition, training, sleep, hydration, all the stuff you'd expect in a fitness book. And the second half is all mindset. So self-sabotage, staying on top of your mental health, goal setting, all that stuff so that you can stay in shape. First half, everything you need to get in shape. Mindset. Second half, everything you need to stay in shape. Weird, because when I wrote that book, the whole reason, I wrote it for a few reasons, which we can get into or not. It might be boring from a non-business perspective, but I was writing it because it was what my clients were struggling with. And my thinking at the time, this was 2016, I was writing, released it in 2017. I said, if all this book does is help my clients, it'll be a success. And I think because of that, it ended up helping so many other people. It's also very short. We were talking before we went on air. I wrote a book for people who don't read books. The audiobook's about 3.5 hours long. You can finish the whole book over a weekend or, a day if you're into sitting down and reading it, and then you've got everything you need really to get started and the basics that you need to understand. So it's helped a lot of people. That's the most important thing, because you know yourself, once the book is written, it's not yours anymore. It's up to people to decide if they love it, hate it, or if it helps them or not. But yeah, it's done well, and I think partly because it was simplified. I was militant. Like I did Stephen King wrote a great book on writing, Kill Your Darlings. We have to go back in and kill your favorite characters. It's one of his writing styles for his books. And I was militant with that. When I edited, I took everything out of that book that didn't need to be in it. And I think it left people with a very easy to apply, basic, common sense approach to how to approach nutrition, training, fitness.
Were you good at writing in school, or were you good with English? Like how did you?
Yeah, I was okay. Yeah, that was one of my better subjects. Yeah, I was, because I have ADHD too, like really bad. Like thankfully for meditation and training, it grounds me just enough that I'm able to get through life, because otherwise my brain is spinning in every direction. But I, in school, did very well in the subjects that I was interested in. I was great at biology, English, home economics. I did home economics as well. Because I was great with the nutritional science, and I nearly failed everything else. Literally nearly failed everything else. Because if I don't have interest in it, I have no interest in it. I won't even pay attention. And then the things that I'm interested in, I can go really deep on. I think ADHD people have that. I had Dr. Brent Hogarth on the podcast, who's a flow researcher for ADHD, and he talks about the dark side of flow. So flow state, Mikhail checks me high about like falling into the zone where you lose track of time in a positive way. Artists get this, athletes get this. You can get it on podcasts, you can get it with writing, where you lose all track of time, you're having so much fun. That's flow state. The dark side of flow is your things like video games, where it's actually depleting your dopamine. Social media, you get lost in time, but it has a negative impact on your brain. When I started to understand that about myself, my whole life made so much more sense. So writing the book, because it was something I was interested in a topic that I was good in, it It's not easy. I always think of book writing and running. They're two things I hate doing, but I love having written, and I love having ran. I hate running.
Do you enjoy it? Do you just hate the thought of it once you're doing it? Do you like it?
No.
And you still do it?
I still do it. Like,
oh, is that not self-torture now?
It is. It's interesting because one of the things that helped me as a coach and a online personal trainer, fitness coach, is because I do a lot of running, and I've done some crazy ultra marathons. Like, you know, I've ran 6 back-to-back marathons in the Sahara. I've ran through the Arctic. I've done 100 miles without stopping.
You hate running?
I hate running, and I'm very vocal on my podcast about this.
Like, as you're running and you're not going, I fucking hate this.
Yep, 100%. I do. But the thing is, I love having ran. And it's weird what you said there about and it's all relative. It's a completely different example, but that feeling of, I need to work out tomorrow at home. You know, I want to get my belly fat down. I want to get my body fat down. I wish I don't want to do it, but I should. I get that because every run is like that for me.
And how often do you run?
3 to 4 times a week. Yeah. Yeah, it varies. I'm less so now because I do shorter distance, do more high rock style stuff. When I was training for ultras, and I did ultras from 2018 to 2020, to 2021 actually, and so I was running and like long runs. But I would stack it. So my rule, similar to the coffee, was my favorite podcast. I wouldn't let myself listen to my favorite podcast unless I was running.
Okay.
So that was the carrot stick approach, the carrot in the sense where I wanted to listen to this podcast that I'm dying to get into, you know, and I wouldn't do that unless I was pairing it with running, and that helped get runs done.
Do you know what I want to talk to you? It just popped up there now because you're like, I hate running, but I do it anyway, and you know, you'll do it 4 times a week. Men and women have different cycles. So men have a diurnal cycle. I'll top up your water there now.
Oh yeah, thank you.
You're a very thirsty person.
I am very thirsty.
And women have, obviously they have their monthly cycle. So when you're talking to your clients and you're mapping out a plan for them, do you take into consideration that women, you know, apparently a man can get up in the morning time, same time every morning, and do the same stuff if he has a routine. Whereas women naturally, because of their monthly cycle, have periods where they're high energy and periods where they're lower in energy. Do you take that into account when you're mapping out your personal journey for your people?
It depends on the client. It depends on the girl. Yeah. Generally my athletes, yes. With general weight loss, it's less important, just because I'm more about mindful movement than strict exercise regimens with those individuals. But if I have a female athlete, we have to, like, if they're in the, you know, luteal phase, I'm going to have to design the training program slightly different, depending on energy levels, recovery, etc. I work with less female athletes now, so it's not as much of an issue. But when I'm working with general population females, weight loss, fat loss, toning up, not inter-county LGFA players or, you know, high-level soccer female athletes. Historically, I've worked with both. We work off mindful movement, and I tell them to listen. Like, I never want to develop a codependent relationship with any client. It needs to be here's all the information. How do you feel? So that when there's a day when they're not working with me, they know how to react because they feel tired today because of the stage of the cycle they're in. Then maybe you should walk today and not go smash the CrossFit workout that you were planning to do. And then the week after or 2 weeks later, your energy is going to be so much higher. And if you want to go do that really intense workout, now's the time to do it. But you're intuitively listening to your body. Food is important, but intuitive training is the thing as well.
I think the intuitively listening to your body is important. And then the poor women in perimenopause with their fucking cycles all over the place, up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
They don't know what end of them's up. But again, if you're tired, you need to understand that your body's tired and seek out a different, exercise source if that's the case.
They're interesting though, and you'll know this as well from having spoken to so many online in particular. There's a weird chicken and egg scenario in perimenopause versus female athletes. So historically, I've worked with a lot of 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds, female athletes, LGFA players, soccer players, etc., where they are playing at a high-level sport and they're just mindful that their energy levels are going to spike depending on where they are in their cycle. In perimenopause, sometimes the movement actually helps. So the training on a day they feel tired knocks them out of the tiredness, which is really unusual. I actually don't know the answer to why this happens, but it's something that it seems to happen time and time again.
Okay.
When my general advice would be back off, intuitively listen to your body, but sometimes it's really weird, and I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth now. You know, but what happens is, and you need to test this, because if you're going through perimenopause and you're feeling really tired and you go and you do your heavy strength session, if you feel more tired, that's a sign next time you need to back off. But what seems to happen with a lot of cases is they go and they train because they feel, it's normally the difference between physical tiredness and mental tiredness and confusing the two. And they'll wake up and they're like, oh my God, I feel so like...
Well, they're always mentally tired,
yes.
right, Brian? Can we just say that for the record? Absolutely exhausted. Their husband's wrecking their head. Their children are annoying them. Job's shite. Okay? They're bollocks.
That's fair. Well,
they're mentally bollocks.
That's it. Yeah. Fuck all to say then. Yeah. Just wave the white flag.
That's
done.
It. That's
it's done. But like, it's worth testing.
Okay.
You know, if you feel that you're, you know, if you're in perimenopause now and you get that where you feel rubbish and really tired and exhausted, and you go and train and you feel that there's a spike in your energy in a positive direction, that means it's likely that you're actually going to be able to train. And that's one of your symptom managements, as opposed to, I'm just going to skip it today because I feel tired.
Okay. Interesting.
But test it. Like, you know, no two people are different. But just from what I've seen, it's it's something that has weirdly flagged with me, that I'm like, this is a trend that I'm seeing more often than not, that I just wanted to share.
Okay.
But I don't have research to back any of this up. So
I know that. Well, sure, there's bugger all research in general on women's health. So, you know, we'll get there. Maybe somebody will do something like that someday. Can I ask you a little bit about the mindset? I know that you talked about habit stacking.
Yeah.
Are there other key elements of mindset that people should know about, that you'd like them to know about when it comes to just living their lives? We've spoken about the dislike for their job, the mindset you can change. It's the feeling of stuckness, not necessarily feeling of hating your job. So what are the other key important points for the mindset?
One of my biggest philosophies, and this is in The Keen Edge, one of my books, is...
The key which?
The Keen Edge. That's...
the Keen Edge.
Keen Edge, yeah. It's my publisher.
You're a fast talker.
Yeah, my publisher.
I thought it was The Key Edge.
The Key Edge, my publisher's named that one. Mastering the Mindset for Real Lasting Fat Loss. And the concept that was in that which was actually my title of the book, which you'll see now in a minute why it got pulled, was don't press the fuck it button. So something I use in my personal life when I feel overwhelmed or stressed, and as someone who's habitually pressed the fuck it button, we've all done it, where it's like, fuck it, I'm done now, I'm out of this relationship, I'm out of this job, I'm done, fuck it. Or it normally shows up in food, where you go off plan on Saturday and you say, well, fuck it, the weekend's gone now. I'll start again on Monday. That myth of Magic Monday. So that fuck it button is a very familiar concept to people. They just have different languages for it. What I get people to think about is, if that fuck it button is worn out, you need to have a strategy to stop pressing it in the first place, and also a strategy if you pressed it and how to get back on track again. The strategy for not pressing it in the first place is the mindset and bringing self-awareness to what happened in the lead up. So if it's food related, and let's say one of the things I've seen most often over the last 13 years of working with people in fitness is, I'm good Monday to Friday, bad at weekends. That's the language they use. So again, good and bad, subjective terms that people use. But that's I'm good in routine, but then the weekend happened and I find it really hard. And then they'll have one bad meal, or quote unquote meal that's off their normal plan. And then they'll say, fuck it. And then the chocolate comes out, the biscuit comes out. The whole thing is thrown out the window. Spirals until Monday. And the analogy I give them is, I drove on the motorway from Galway to Dublin here. If I was driving on the motorway and got one flat tire, having one bad meal and then saying fuck it and just going off plan for the rest of the weekend is like me getting out of my car with a flat tire and slashing the other 3 tires. That's the equivalent. You'd never do that with your car, but we do it with our nutrition all the time. And so the concept is what I brought into that book and what I talk about on podcasts is reset button. Hit the reset button. If you go off plan, you're not a bad person because you've eaten a donut or you've had some biscuits or, you've had a few glasses of wine. Not even slightly. Maybe you needed that. Like psychologically, one of the things I do with every client I work with is I ask them what's their soul food. SOUL, for soul food. Chocolate's my soul food. Like, I don't have a sweet tooth, I have sweet teeth. Like, I love chocolate. You took that away from me, I'm like, no, my coffee and my chocolate, two things that life wouldn't be worth living if you took both away from me. And there's a concept in psychology called the pink elephant theory. I'm sure you've heard of it, maybe not in terms of a different way. The pink elephant theory is, if I say, Laura, don't think of a pink elephant, first thing that your mind conjures, pink elephant. And the psychological studies are based on deprivation. When you tell yourself you can't have something, that's what you start to want. So,
but isn't that the whole diet culture?
And that's what's wrong with diet culture.
Yeah.
Part of what's wrong with diet culture is actually quite a lot of things wrong with diet culture, but we can go down that, but it's a rabbit hole in itself.
Yeah.
One of the primary things wrong with diet culture is the restriction mindset, pulling off your favorite foods. And I get the theory and the logic behind it, for sure. There's definitely, it makes sense on paper, but we're not beings on paper. We're biological human beings and psychological human beings in this case. You tell yourself you can't have something, first thing you want. And if you're going on a nutritional plan versus a diet, and you have these foods and they're on plan, because nutrition is massively overcomplicated. If you're trying to lose body fat, for example, you're trying to get your belly fat down, and you love chocolate, your soul food, SOUL, your soul food, this food you love, you need to keep that in your plan somewhere. Yeah, maybe you're not going to have 10 chocolate bars every day, probably not, but you might be able to have one very, very easily.
Why not?
Why not? Especially if you minimize it. Like, in terms of what we talked about earlier, like the banana, the yogurt, the chicken, food and the way it absorbs in our body isn't a 1 + 1 = 2 always. So just because a banana spikes your blood sugar by itself, having it with a piece of chicken slows it down. Chocolate's the same. You put your chocolate into a yogurt, you add in some berries, you add in some nuts, straight away you'll slow down that blood sugar spike.
You've just described my breakfast most days.
It's a good breakfast.
Yeah.
That's a good breakfast. Yeah. Salivating thinking of that.
I know. I love it now. And I put a square of chocolate in every.
Yeah. But what you've done now is you've bulked up the food you love and you've minimized its potential unsupportive effects, i.e. an increase in blood sugar or a tendency to overeat because you didn't bulk it up. They're kind of the two main things. So you can put plans in place around that. And straight away, and it's a real pattern interrupt when I work with clients, particularly those who've been yo-yo dieting for years. When I say, well, what's your soul food? And they say, oh, chocolate or crisps or whatever it is. And I go, cool. Well, we're going to factor this into the plan. And their eyes just widen, like that stars emoji that you get on your phone.
Yeah.
And part of that is to show that no food's off plan. That food isn't good and bad. We will keep your favorite food in here because that's the key for sustainability over the long term. But it also works from a psychological standpoint of the pink elephant theory. If I say, right, you can't have that, you're going to be dying for that. And you're literally going to get off the call and go, well, I better have some now because I'm checking in with him next week. And then he won't ask me if I do it now. Defeats the whole purpose. And not pressing the fuck button is important because that's the prevention. By knowing that these foods are on your plan, but the dangers in the dose and how you eat them when you eat them also plays a role, and educating yourself on that so you can make better choices minimizes your chance of pressing that fuck button. And then when you go off and you do go off plan and have the whole packet of biscuits, because sometimes that happens, or, half the cake when you're only planning a slice, you reset. And then the guilt and the shame, the negative emotions that you've decided to choose to feel because you've gone off plan, don't nurture those. Don't pour energy onto those. You're not a bad person because you went off your food plan, but we feel like that because of the guilt and shame spiral that comes with it. So minimizing that. And generally, and this happened with one of my clients last week who's down, I think he's down 7 pounds, 8 pounds in the last few weeks. He had a good bit of weight to lose, but he messaged me on Monday. I was like, oh, Brian, I have a confession. I was like, okay. I was like, I thought he was going to tell me he killed somebody. Like I'm in prison now. I fucking see in 7 to 8 years. But he goes, I fucking ate, way more than I was supposed to at the weekend. And I was like, okay, tell me how much more you ate, thinking it was going to be this laundry list of food. And he goes, I had 4 slices of pizza. He goes, I was only supposed to have 1. And I replied and went, what were they like? And he was like, what do you mean, what were they like?
Delicious.
That's not what he said. He was like, what do you mean, what were they like? There was 4 of them. He was describing the quantity. Yeah. And I was like, oh no, how did it taste? And he was like, yeah, it was lovely. It was amazing. I was like, what was the situation? He goes, well, I was out with my buddies. And I was like, did you have a good night? He was like, yeah, it was brilliant. We were watching the match, things kind of rolled over. And I was like, brilliant. Yeah. I was like, Good. I was like, you fed your soul. Back on plan today. Good job. I'm glad you had a good weekend. And then because that was his guilt and shame that was starting to speak, and then just nips it. And when someone validates, therapy does this. Therapy really changed my life for other reasons. But one of the things that I really struggle with, I went through a really bad breakup a few years ago, and witness grief is the term that got thrown at me, where you just need somebody to witness the fact that you feel like life is falling apart. And the fact that someone can witness it makes you feel like you can put yourself back together. And witness guilt and shame is similar. You sometimes need somebody to go, "You cool." They didn't even acknowledge the fact that you felt all this guilt and shame. They've just been like, all right, cool, back on plan. That's a very powerful thing, because that's mindset. That's emotional intelligence. That's checking in with this. And sometimes when people say control your calories, get into the deficit, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have any nuance or context when there's so many things moving for people, and approaching it with different lenses, coming at it from a place of empathy, that can be really helpful. And there's lots of people who will do this. It's just surrounding yourself with the right people. That might be a family member or a friend, a husband or a wife that does that. But just be mindful that you're not a bad person because you pressed the fuck button. That guilt and shame spiral can be stopped. And you've got this tool of resetting to get back on plan, coming at it from both angles. And that can really help with the mindset.
Okay. Alcohol. Do you drink yourself?
I do. Less now. But yeah, no, I do love a pint.
What? Guinness?
No, I'm a spirit drinker generally.
Are you?
Yeah. Brandy, vodka, tequila. Yeah.
Not altogether.
But it's having
That's a Long Island iced tea.
a big night. Yeah, I do. I love a fucking Long Island. Oh, that's my favorite drink of all time.
Is it?
Oh, 100%.
There's everything in that.
I love it. Yes, triple sec, Bacardi, rum, tequila, a drop of Coke. I fucking love a Long Island iced tea. Like literally every holiday, that's my drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you find, and particularly in Ireland, there's this drinking culture now? Actually, they're saying now that apparently a lot of our younger kids aren't.
Your boys, I bet, aren't, because they're sporty. I know one of them plays hurling.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you, but just got excited with that question.
Yeah.
Like, it's shifting.
Without a doubt. So, years ago, say, you would have maybe been down the park drinking Naggins or Dutch Gold or whatever people may or may not have been doing.
I still do that. What are you on about? That's what I was doing before I came in here.
But they're
Why do you think I'm so chipper?
They're not doing it these days. Now, there's the other side of the coin is where they're saying apparently there's a lot more drug use, like cocaine, etc.
Yeah.
Like, where the hell are they getting the money for the cocaine? Anyway, that's another story. But yes, so alcohol-free nights, or apparently kids are meeting up and having coffees and things like that.
Yeah.
So hopefully that whole binge drinking era is changing, but there's still an awful lot of people that do drink probably too much.
Yeah.
And how do you help people that say to you, listen, they may or may not have a problem with it, but they just find it difficult? It's that crush, it's that weekend binge where they could almost down, a bottle, 2 bottles of wine.
It depends on the situation. Assuming no alcohol dependence, which is a very different thing, and probably outside my scope of practice, actually definitely outside my scope of practice, but social obligation drinking is a different thing.
Yeah.
The advice on that is different to understanding the nutritional value and how it sets you off plan. I can go into both. The social obligation side, like I think this is changing now. You see a lot of the zero drinks, the Guinness Zero, Cider Zero, etc. So people feel like they can go out, have the cans, and people don't question them. That's useful. And advice that I always say as well, if you're going on a fitness journey particularly, is try and find activities that are non-alcohol based. It's hard in Ireland because the weather's not as nice as other places. I used to live in California. It was a lot easier in California because the weather was predictable. It was going to be nice and you knew it was going to be nice. So things like running clubs, workout stuff, reading, coffee shops, things that are friend and social based but non-alcohol based. It's interesting because when you make the decision to reduce your alcohol intake or potentially give it up, if that's what you decide to do, you'll start to see a lot of other people who are similar. And it's really actually a bit unfortunate. I remember I had a lot of drinking buddies, people who I thought were friends in my 20s, that when I went a period of 26 to 29 with no alcohol and gave it up for nearly 3 years.
Why?
Fitness reasons for me.
Okay.
Fitness reasons for me. Yeah. I've used alcohol as a bit of a coping mechanism when I was unhappy during that period of time. When I hated my job, I was drinking too much. Okay. Because it was a bit of a numbing agent and made me feel better temporarily. It's just, robbing tomorrow's happiness for today.
Yeah.
Really. But when I got into fitness, I was very big into that side of things. Alcohol was having a very negative impact physically on me, meaning that my hangovers were getting worse. It was messing up my training, and that was a higher priority. So I didn't even mean to give it up. Like, it wasn't a conscious decision. I'm giving this up for 3 years. I just stopped drinking. So it's slightly different. And then I have a better alcohol relationship now as well. Like, I socially drink. I have a drink. Like, I don't binge drink anymore. I had that through college, like most Irish people, etc. That's a kind of a common rite of passage for a lot. Unfortunately, it's changing now, though, as you've said. But that social obligation, you tend to find that the friends that were drinking friends aren't necessarily deep connection friends, but you end up meeting other people who don't drink as much. And now, like my best friends now, some of them have a drink, but none of them are big drinkers. I'm not a big drinker either. I love a drink, but I'm not a big drinker. I don't go out every weekend and have 6 pints.
Okay.
It's not my scene. Christmas was the last time I drank, and it would be a glass of brandy, 2 pints of cider, a tequila, things along those lines. That was my kind of scene more than anything else. But the nutritional side is important to understand, because if we think about the analogy I gave earlier about pushing a tire up a hill, trying to get in shape, lose body fat, lose weight, tone up, etc., whatever the goal is, alcohol is like pushing that tire up the hill, but wearing a weighted vest doing it. Meaning that you've made a hard thing harder. It's not impossible, but you'll definitely make the whole thing harder. And sometimes it's better to push the tire up the hill. And if you've got that weighted vest on, it actually doesn't make any difference, because it's just easier to maintain. So giving up alcohol for a period of time, 6, 12, 24 weeks, whatever it is, to hit your goal and then reintroduce it is actually a pretty good idea, because it's empty calories, first and foremost. It's a nutrient displacer, vitamin displacer. So if you have it with meals, it's going to affect the absorption of the nutrients in the food. That's not helpful either. And not to mention the bad decisions you make with alcohol. Fuck me, I've made a lot of those.
So tasty though, Brian. So tasty.
It is. Thankfully, some of them are only food decisions, but I've made a lot of fucking bad decisions with alcohol. You wake up in the morning and go, oh shit, I just wish it was a slice of pizza that was beside me.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that? It's an ad for, is it for Specsavers, or what is it for? But anyway, this man wakes up beside a woman and he looks at her and and then he comes down the stairs, and it's like as if he's sneaking off after one night stand. He comes down the stairs as if he's leaving real quiet, and there's a picture of him on his wedding day married to the same woman, and then a kid comes out of the room and goes, "Morning, Dad." And he's like, "Oh fuck."
No, I haven't.
So
what a great ad,
funny.
though.
It is brilliant.
Oh, that's
It is brilliant. I see it all the time and I just laugh my head off, because they've deliberately made the poor wife unattractive as well. So his reaction, like, it's just, anyway, that's before we wrap up, I want to talk about cortisol.
Yeah.
Because cortisol is like this buzzword that I see loads of people talking about, and it's almost like as if they're talking about it from a real medical perspective, when in actual fact, cortisol just means stress. And if we break that down, it just means your body's stressed, and you can't actually take something to reduce your cortisol levels, as in, and there's all these supplement things going around, and reduce your cortisol levels, take this, that, and the thing, which is a whole pile of arse, right? Yeah. So how do you help people, I suppose, manage stress, manage those cortisol levels that you're talking about? Apart from now avoiding coffee in the morning time, right? You've already discussed that.
I have. I feel like everyone switched off after that, where they're like, no, fuck this guy, I'm not listening to him anymore. And rightly so. I'd be the same. I love my coffee. As you mentioned, understanding what cortisol is the first important thing. Cortisol is a stress hormone. So it can be marketed in so many different ways, that take this tea, have this supplement, do this thing, and reduce cortisol. A very important thing to understand is cortisol isn't bad. Excessive cortisol isn't helpful, because cortisol is the thing that wakes you up in the morning, that we've already discussed. Cortisol will elevate when you work out and train. Acute short bursts of cortisol is very helpful. Working out is a short burst of cortisol. So it's a paradox. What exercise does is it temporarily elevates cortisol so that you can chronically reduce cortisol. That's one of the ways it works. Cold exposure works in a very similar way. So does heat exposure.
Do you do those ice baths?
I'm a big ice bath person.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I do.
No, I just couldn't.
I do. I love it.
I think if my children were, you know, if it was like life or death, I don't think I could do an ice bath.
Do you know what though? Ice baths are really funny. They're very similar to working out. You get a little bit addicted to them. So you increase as well what's called your brown adipose tissue, your BAT tissue. So it can actually increase your body's ability to burn more body fat. So sometimes that's...
Is that just because you're really cold and your metabolism is just burning, trying to keep you warm?
No. Yes and no. So the way that it does that is you get this increase. So you've got your brown adipose tissue. So it's a type of fat that you would assume, the same as people confuse fat in your body with dietary fat. People, this old misconception, if I eat fat, I get fat. That's not how fat works. Fat is a macronutrient. It's got 9 kilocalories per gram. So it's higher compared to protein and carbohydrates. But dietary fat's completely different to the fat tissue that's on your body. So with cold exposure, the increase in brown adipose tissue just means that you're going to, it's kind of like throwing paper on a fire. It just means your body gets better at burning fat. So that's one of the ways that cold exposure can work. You can see this is actually one of my pet peeves, is the cryo chambers advertised as fat loss chambers. It's actually a big pet peeve of mine because it's technically, I can see why they're doing that, but there's so many other things going on. Just going into a cryo chamber for 3 minutes isn't going to melt all the fat off your body. So just for those...
Sounds like a whole lot of horse shit to me.
Yeah, it's as close to horseshit as you'll get with it. It's one of those things that there's a small nugget of truth to it, but it's a 1%, 0.5% gain compared to nutrition, sleep, movement, exercise, which is your 99.9%.
Yeah.
So just to clarify that. But cortisol. So your short bursts, your training, your cold, your heat, they're hermetic, called hermetic stressors. They're short versions of stress, acute stressors that help with chronic stress. So cortisol isn't bad, and people will mislabel it and say your cortisol is bad. It's not bad. Excessive cortisol is bad. Chronic cortisol is bad. Too much cortisol over a long period is bad. It will increase your levels of body fat, particularly in your stomach and your belly and lower back region. It will reduce your energy. It'll kill your sex drive. It will increase your risk of all-cause mortality. All the diseases that you're potentially either genetically or hereditarily in line to pick up will speed up as a result of this. We know this has been around for decades. People know this. There's a great book by Robert Sapolsky, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, which goes through this whole evolutionary reason and how cortisol is connected with the rest of the physiological system. And in relatively layman's terms, there's good examples in there. He's a very, very smart man, Dr. Robert Sapolsky. And cortisol is something that you don't want excessive amounts of. So your stress management comes in. Journaling, meditation, yoga, walking, nature bathing, deep conversations, sleeping well, all of these things manage your cortisol. It's not take your ashwagandha. Great supplement. Research is really robust on ashwagandha at the minute in terms of your body's ability to, it's an adaptogen. So you're going to feel...
It's just it has a really calming effect. It's great. I have that in my or.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's important that people understand as well. It's those lifestyle changes that are so important and incorporated with supplementation if people need it. Isn't that right?
100%.
Yeah.
Like 100%. It's the cherry on top. It's not the cake.
Yeah.
And that's really... And
it's that chronic stress that we're talking about. And it's very different to someone having an issue with cortisol production in terms of like Addison's disease and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you hear people going online about, if you have a moon-shaped face, like if you have a moon-shaped face, it's not just high cortisol levels. You have an issue there and you need to go and get seen to. It's not a case of... So I think that it's really important, this whole stress management part of it. And do you journal?
Oh, yeah. I'm a big journaler. Yeah, every day.
And would you ever turn your journal into a book?
I do.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, not all of it, because some of it's just rambles that is only relevant to me. A lot of the chapters, so the last book, and I hate being a pitchy wanker, like, because I'm always like, look, people should read the book. I think it'll benefit them. Don't read it if they don't.
Oh yeah, I don't mind you being a pitchy wanker.
Thanks, I'll take that.
Go ahead.
Brian Keane, #pitchy wanker. With the book,
at least you're not a bitchy wanker.
That's true. That'd be way worse. That'd be way worse. The fucking difference between that B and P is a big difference.
Yeah.
It's only several letters, but it's a massive difference in terms of alphabet. But with rewriting your story, I broke that into 7 habits. And the last one, which is a massive cliche, is learning to live without regret. And I literally open that chapter with, this is the biggest cliche you're going to read in this book, but let me explain. And the reason I wrote Living Without Regret as the last one was because the previous 6 habits are the thing that allow you to get to that point where you don't live without regret. You know, I know you're probably going to ask me that question on the meaning of life. And one of the things I come back to regularly is what I call my 97-year-old rule. I make decisions today based on what I would regret on my 97-year-old deathbed. My business decisions, romantic decisions, decisions with my daughter, decisions with my life in general. And I run things through that lens on, would I regret this on my 97-year-old deathbed, doing or not doing this thing? And that gives me a lot of feedback on, I don't want to go to that deathbed if I get to that point and I'm lucky enough to get to 97 with regret. And it allows me to navigate and make decisions today so that doesn't happen. The reason I put it as chapter 7 was because the previous 6 chapters are the habits that you need to do today, next week, next month, and build over time, 66 days and beyond, so that you can use that 97-year-old rule and tie the whole thing together. That's the reason I wrote the book the way I did. And that came from journaling. That was me feeling lost and going, fucking hell, I feel out of alignment here. And I'm starting to regret some of the ways I'm showing up. I would do events or podcasts where my energy was just too low. And I just wasn't tuned in because I was struggling with personal stuff. You know, my dad got sick. That hit me hard. And I was trying to put on a straight face as opposed to just acknowledging you're feeling exceptionally vulnerable and weak today. Just be with that and accept that, as opposed to fucking no, go.
But isn't that hard as a business owner or self-employed person, you know, to keep going? Because you constantly feel, I don't know, you have responsibilities, you have staff working for you. If you say no to this opportunity, every opportunity leads to something.
Yeah.
So I think that comes part and parcel with doing what you're doing. Now, a lot of people will probably do that and they don't necessarily have to be business owners either. But I just, you know, is that the way of the world, the constantly seeking?
Yeah. I think one of the terms I learned in therapy was capacity, that we have a certain amount of capacity. It's kind of like this cup I'm drinking from, that there's only so much we can do before it overflows and it goes into overwhelm. And that's capacity. At different stages of life and different seasons of life, you'll have different stages of capacity. During those phases, when Dad got sick, thankfully he's okay now. And when I went through a bad breakup, there are 2 in recent memory in the last 3 or 4 years that my capacity shrunk. I didn't have the capacity to train and do an extreme challenge. I was barely keeping, the business was taking over, thankfully, because I have a lot of automations and systems. And I have a very financially lucrative business based on having made good choices several years ago and made good investments in my personal life, that I'm able to take a step back and not have to stress and worry about money. And I'm very, very fortunate for that. But I had to pull back. And there was a period when I didn't. I just tried to grind it out and push through. And I climbed Kilimanjaro in October. I brought a group of my followers up Kilimanjaro in Tanzania in October. And I remember one of the guides gave me a great line on there where he said, it's an African proverb. He said, it doesn't matter how sharp your teeth are, you can't bite water. And what he meant by that is that every problem has a different solution. And, you know, in the Bible, and I'm not religious at all, but I love the line, to the man with the hammer, the whole world looks like a nail. My approach was always grind it out, put your head down, work harder. That was my solution to everything. And that was leading to overwhelm, burnout, and me breaking down. And I didn't know that at the time.
When you say breakdown, did you have a breakdown, or was it just that you just...
I at one point, particularly after the breakup, because there was just a lot of things happening that through, because I thought we were supposed to get married. So I thought,
oh my goodness,
I was setting up
Is
life.
she the mother of your daughter?
No, thankfully,
Okay.
no, thank God.
That relationship's sound.
We have an amazing relationship. Holly's mum is incredible. We're really good friends. She's a wonderful mother. We have a great relationship. We do Holly's birthday together, Christmas together. We do all that, and her.
It's all about your daughter, then, isn't
all
it?
about Holly, and the same with like I've got a girlfriend now. She's incredible. My Holly's mother's partner is incredible, and she's the most loved child from all around. So we're so fortunate. So I was very, very lucky on that sense. But no, it was a different breakup, and that took a toll. It took a toll. It felt, and this never really happened to me before. One, I'd never had my heart broken. I went through 33 years of my life without ever having my heart
I thought you were
broken.
going to say I went through 33 women. I was
33 women, yeah. One after the other. That's it. Get over someone, get under
You're
someone.
a cocky fecker.
Yeah, that's it. Imagine. No, but it was, I just didn't have my heart broken. It was a new experience for me. In that sense, I've had death of loved ones and, broken hearts from a different thing, but never in a romantic sense. That was the first time. I'd gone 33 years without that happening, which is really interesting when I look back, on past relationships.
Yeah.
But it just meant
Has it scarred you now for life, do you think?
No, I did a lot of work. To be fair, a lot of work on it. And again, it was amazing. There was nothing wrong. That was a relationship that was misaligned. I've nothing, we don't speak anymore, but she's my ex-partner's a really good person.
Yeah.
Really good person. Relationship dynamic didn't work.
Yeah.
That was one of those relationships that love was the only thing that kept it together because none of the rest made sense.
Okay.
And she's a great person and she will find and make someone super happy at some point and really happy for that. But it was a period in life which was a bit of a wake up for me that when you think someone that's the main character in your story only turns out to be a chapter, that feels like the rug of the world gets pulled from underneath your feet. And that was stuff I journaled on. It was really interesting when I wrote the last book, the Rewriting Your Story. I finished that book a year and a half ago, but I had sections in there about my partner at the time, the girl that I was going to get married to.
Okay.
And I couldn't bring myself to edit those out until a year and a half ago. And what started to happen, and I wrote this in the epilogue, that the words in that book started to find me again, which is really weird because I talk in that book about your past self, your current self, your future self, the three people that you need to make friends with. And it felt like a past version of me was writing words for a current version of me who was struggling, because I was really struggling. When I went back in to edit that book, I was like, I've fucking written this book. I need to go back and just edit those bits out. And then I started to read the words again. And there's chapters in there about learning to let go. It's habit 3. And I read that over and over again. Words I fucking wrote over and over again. Words I had journaled on. And then I tweaked and changed things and made it make sense. And that book ended up helping me. Even if I never published that book, it ended up indirectly helping me.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew it was something that was going to help others, because it did it for me. And the feedback, that's the book I'm getting messages on now where people are like, wow.
What's it called?
Rewriting Your Story.
Okay.
Yeah. 7 habits to change the narratives that hold you back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Jesus, you're a complex individual. I'd stay here all day with you, but
likes his coffee.
We have to get the 2 other questions. You've kind of answered the meaning of life one, but we'll go and want to have a proper one. What advice would you give young people today?
You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Make sure you're spending time with a good group of 5.
So no one has ever said that. That's very good, actually. It makes a lot of sense. Particularly as a mother of 3 lads. Okay.
Yeah. My mum used to always tell me that if you lie down with dogs, you get fleas. That was her line.
Your mother had a good few lines.
My mother she's
between the tree, the fleas, and what was the other one she said to you?
What would you do for free?
Yeah.
Fleas. My favourite mother's
line. Can we get
line.
your man on the podcast?
She's brilliant. I actually need to bring her on mine at some point. My favourite line from mum is that you're not everyone's cup of tea, but you're someone's shot of whiskey. That's one that I particularly love.
Yeah, indeed. Or Long Island iced tea, as the case might be.
100%. First thing I said when I met my new girlfriend, I was like, are you Long Island iced tea? She's like, I fucking am.
I love it.
It's worked out.
I love it. And what is the meaning of life?
I think leaving the world better than you found it. I think a lot about that it's weird because I would identify as a type A and very go, high achiever, very ambitious by default, sometimes to a fault. And now my North Star has been very much a place of kind of coming at everything from love, peace and service, and making sure that when I'm showing up with Holly, with my girlfriend, with clients in this, that you're coming from a place of peace, you're coming from a place of love, and you're coming from a place of service. I've used that as a North Star. And over the last few years, it's really made me think to just make the world a little bit of a better place because you were here. And that dictates everything I do. It's why I don't call people out on social media. It's why I'm not a dick when I don't agree with somebody. I will try and put myself in their perspective and viewpoint and go, okay, why do they think that way? As opposed to being like, you fucking idiot. Like, what are you saying? Because that just brings more negativity. And there's plenty of that already. I don't want to be adding to it. So I think just leaving the world a little bit of a better place because you were here. That's definitely my North Star at the minute anyway.
Well, Brian Keane, we'll have to get you back on again because I think there's several podcasts in you.
Amazing.
Thanks for joining me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you
Thanks.
so much again.
That's great.